Trinity Sunday. A number of commentators and some of my colleagues have said they're not going to preach on the Trinity. They give a variety of reasons. One is that it would put you to sleep. But we do that with sermons all the time, so that's not a very good excuse. The other is that it's too complicated for people to understand, and they just don't want to listen to it. Michael, my undergraduate degree is in mathematics, and I taught math for a while. Michael he's going to get a job at a college somewhere teaching math. And one of my great thrills in learning math was discovering how to prove that the square root of 2 is an irrational number. I mean, that got me so excited. And it's just distressing to know that none of you cares about that at all. The Trinity is kind of like that. We try to explain it, but it's really too difficult to understand. In fact, one great historian said to believe in the Trinity is absolutely essential. To try to explain it will drive you insane. And we've used all sorts of images about the Trinity. The egg, the white of the shell, the white inside, and the yolk. It's all an egg, but each has different functions. Or water, in the solid form of ice, the liquid form that we drink, or the steam that comes out. Wonderful images. All of them not very appropriate, not very good. Actually, I was teaching a confirmation class, and we were talking about the Trinity. And this young lady sitting there was listening to what I was saying, and all of a sudden she said, "Pastor Bill, I have shampoo that has shampoo, conditioner, and emollient in it. Is that like the Trinity?" And I said, "Oh, that's one of the best ones I've heard. It's all one, but it has different functions." Yeah. What do we do with the Trinity? Jesus tells us a lot as he's teaching his disciples in this upper room. It's almost like the lectionary committee hasn't figured out that we've already gone through the crucifixion and the resurrection, because they've still got Jesus up there in that upper room. We had him up there last week too. But as he teaches them, he says again and again, parts of the Trinity. The Father and I are one. All that the Father has is mine. And I'm sending this Spirit, this advocate, this comforter. And the early Christian church said, as we listen to this, it almost sounds like we have 3 gods. In fact, that's bothering us a lot. And so they asked the theologians of the day, come up with a way to explain that we only worship one God, not 3. They struggled with it. They finally came up with the doctrine of the Trinity. 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. If you'd like to read more about the Trinity, there is something called the Athanasian Creed. We don't have it in this hymnal, but remember the green hymnal? It's in that one, on page 54 if you're interested. Kurt just told me that about a year ago he preached on the Trinity, and he used that creed at the end of his service instead of the Nicene Creed, which we're going to use. And afterwards, somebody told him it was a good sermon, but never use that god-awful creed again. If you find yourself having trouble going to sleep, read it. It'll put you to sleep. But it's an attempt to try to explain the Trinity. That the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Spirit, but The Father is God, and the Son is God, and the Spirit is God, and I could go on and on and on, and you don't care. But what Jesus says is, this is incredibly important stuff. Kind of like being able to prove that the square root of 2 is an irrational number. It's incredibly important. Because what's conveyed and what Jesus talks about again and again in that upper room is that this God who created the universe, who stands outside of all of that creation, as the psalmist says, cares about each one of us. There was a telescope called the Hubble spacecraft. It was on its way out of our galaxy. And Stephen Hawking called the people who were directing this Hubble spacecraft and said, "Can you turn the camera around and get a picture of our galaxy from outside the galaxy?" And they said, "No, because we don't know if we'll be able to redirect it." He said, "Try it, it'll work." And so they did. And they took a famous picture from outside our galaxy looking back toward us. What's impressive about this picture is that down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little dot of light. And that's our Earth. So small. And God sees that little dot of light and the creatures that are on it and says, "Oh, I care for them." That's amazing. And Jesus says it comes to you in so many different ways. He literally shares the love of God with the people around him. He goes out to those who are most in trouble, those who are most excluded, those who are most afraid, and offers them the peace of Christ, the peace that passes all understanding. And then as he's leaving his disciples, he tells them, "I'm going away. And you know the way that I'm going." And they said, "We don't know the place you're going to. How can we know the way?" He says, "I'm the way and the truth and the life. I'll take care of you forever. But I'm going to be gone." And they've asked him a couple of times in this upper room, "Where? What do we do now?" And finally he says, "I'm not going to leave you orphaned, but I'm going to send you the gift of the Spirit. I have a lot of other things that I could tell you," he tells them, "but you can't bear them right now. But the Spirit will call to mind all that I've given you, all that I've told you. And that Spirit will be sufficient for your lives in the coming days." What things could they not bear? Perhaps he would tell them of a time when millions of them, simply because they're Jewish, are exterminated. Maybe he'd tell them that humanity would develop a weapon that could be dropped by something called an airplane and kill tens of thousands of people in an instant. Maybe he would tell them of a pandemic that would kill millions of people and would frighten the world and collapse the economy. How could they bear those things? But he says, the Spirit will continue to work through you, in you, and for the sake of the world. The Spirit will continue to remind you that you are cared for by the God of all creation, and that this love that he shares with you can be shared with others to provide hope in those situations. He'll tell you again and again that nothing can separate you from this love. Nothing, not even death. And this one will sustain you through times when you grieve, when you're frightened, when you're uncertain about the future. Because, as Paul says, this suffering that we go through produces character and endurance and hope. And this hope does not disappoint us. This hope is for all eternity. This hope is what carries us through day by day into that place that Jesus prepares for us. So, on this Trinity Sunday, you can rejoice in the beauty of creation that God the Father has given us. You can be empowered by the gift of Jesus' Spirit that continues to share with us the love of Christ. And you can continue to invite people to encounter Jesus and experience grace. And you do that in many different ways because this Spirit will lead you in the way that you are to go. And that's really good news on this Trinity Sunday. So I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I hope that you are empowered by this Spirit and led in the way of Christ for the rest of your lives. Amen.